2025 could be a momentous year that sees big shifts in global affairs, a chance for peace, but also the danger of further escalation or even new conflict breaking out. And the change begins pretty much immediately, with the inauguration of Donald Trump as US President on January the 20th. We'll hear now from RFERL journalists around the world about what to expect over the next 12 months, starting with Todd Prince in Washington.
Trump and his team have laid out big changes in foreign policy, including peace talks to end the war in Ukraine, maximum pressure on Iran to halt its nuclear enrichment program, and punishing tariffs on Chinese imports. But is the former real estate developer simply taking a tough bargaining position in the hopes of striking a better deal for the United States? Trump has said he will give Ukraine whatever it needs if Russia isn't willing to negotiate. Whether that will push Putin to stop hostilities at the current line of contact remains to be seen. Meanwhile, Trump's team is calling for tougher sanctions enforcement on Iran, especially on its oil exports, to squeeze the country's economy. Oil remains a lifeblood of Iran's budget and is critical to financing its military. Finally, Trump has repeatedly said he will impose high tariffs on Chinese imports to undermine Beijing's growing political, military, and economic power. China has said it will hit back with its own tariffs on restrictions on critical exports to the United States, setting up a potential showdown between the two biggest economic and military powers in the world.
Well, US support for Ukraine has been vital for its ability to defend itself against Russia's full-scale invasion. But Trump has strongly criticised the billions of dollars that Washington has spent on this. So what's the view in Ukraine of the new US administration and the prospects for the months ahead? Here's Natalie Sedlecka in Kyiv.
Ukrainians are hoping the new American president will help bring an end to the war. But there are growing concerns here that this might be forced on Ukraine on terms that are not in its favor, including big territorial and political concessions to Russia. There is also fear that such a deal could allow Russia to escape accountability, that war crimes and crimes against humanity could go unpunished, undermining the sacrifice Ukrainians have made. Another worry is that a peace deal might lead to the lifting of Western sanctions on Russia, allowing the Kremlin to rebuild its economy and military strength for future aggression. On the home front, there is a broad agreement in Ukraine that elections should happen only after the war ends. So if that happens, Ukraine will face a major political reset. Research also shows that about half of the Ukrainians who've left the country are likely to return home once the war ends, but only if they feel that there is a secure and stable perspective waiting for them.
Russia has responded cautiously to talk of a quick ceasefire or peace deal in Ukraine, while also stepping up its attacks in an apparent effort to put itself in as strong a position as possible before any talks begin. RFERL has been forced out of Russia since 2022. So Ksenia Sokolyanskaya joins us from our newsroom here in Prague.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has indeed been ramping up his assault on Ukraine with increasing airstrikes on Ukrainian cities and intensified ground offensive in eastern Ukraine. Russia's budget for 2025 has record spending on defense and security, so one can suggest that Russia's leadership doesn't intend to end the war, or at least had no such plans until Trump won the US presidential election. Analysts are now debating whether Putin might actually be looking for a way out of the war, hoping Trump could help broker an exit on Russia's terms. Meanwhile, inside the country, Russia has continued to pass repressive laws against its citizens and foreigners. In August, Human Rights Watch published a report which says that civil rights have been systematically destroyed in Russia. Unfortunately, we have absolutely no reason to believe that this trend will change in the coming year.
Nearby, there's another possible flashpoint: Georgia. Elections in October ended with the ruling Georgian Dream Party claiming victory and brought mass protests amid accusations that the ballot was rigged. This was followed by talk by the government of delaying membership negotiations with the European Union until 2028, and more protests which have met a violent response from security forces. Anton Kokaya is in Tbilisi.
The big question is whether these protests bring about a change in Georgia's course. When Parliament reopened after the recent elections, opposition parties boycotted proceedings but were unable to prevent the ruling party pursuing its agenda. It could be further boosted by a new loyal president coming in to replace the previous head of state, Salome Zurabishvili, who was a vocal critic of Georgian Dream and said the election was stolen. If Georgian Dream still remains in power, a rapprochement with the West, especially with the European Union, appears unlikely, and Russia is visibly content with the developments here in Tbilisi. But it comes with a price. Economists have said that democratic backsliding will negatively affect the country's prospects for growth and prosperity.
As we move south, other major conflicts have been raging between Israel and two Iranian proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, both designated as terrorist groups by Washington. This led to direct attacks between Israel and Iran and fears of further escalation. It's been followed by a major upsurge of fighting in Syria. So how grave is the danger for the region? Here's Kion Sharifi.
Let's start with Iran. Its air defenses and missile production facilities have been severely depleted by Israeli attacks. This could result in Tehran rethinking its deterrence strategy in the coming months. That, some fear, may include developing a nuclear bomb. What lends credence to this is the fact that Iranian proxies have also been weakened by Israel. Chief among them is Hezbollah, which was degraded by Israel following a weeks-long campaign to stop it launching rockets at northern Israel. A ceasefire brokered by the US is fragile, but it will likely hold because Hezbollah needs time to recover, and Israel would rather focus on Gaza and Iran itself. But this is the Middle East, and when one conflict ends, another begins. As soon as the ceasefire went into effect, Syrian rebels opposed to President Bashar al-Assad seized the city of Aleppo. Expect Russia and Iran to continue coming to Assad's aid. Now, moving east, another country to watch for is Afghanistan. International recognition remains elusive for the Taliban. That said, expect Afghanistan's neighbors like China, Iran, and Russia to maintain and perhaps expand relations with the Taliban.
And tensions are also simmering between China and Taiwan. China claims the whole of Taiwan as its territory and has not ruled out using force against the island. Taiwan is a key Western ally and a global supplier of microchips, and the ruling DPP party is determined to resist increasing Chinese pressure. Reid Standish joins us from Taiwan's capital, Taipei.
Thanks, Ray. Looking into 2025, the question for Taiwan is the same one that's been here for decades. What is Beijing planning? China is modernizing its military and ramping up defense spending, which is leaving Taiwan massively outgunned. That's heightened fears over a potential Chinese invasion, with some US officials saying that Beijing could make a move as soon as 2027. Whether or not that's the case, it's brought a sense of urgency here. Adding to that feeling is the return of US President Donald Trump. Trump is likely to continue America's strong support for Taiwan, but he's also criticized it. He said that Taipei needs to ramp up defense spending and suggested Taiwan should pay the US for its defense. Taiwanese officials say they've already boosted spending and are set to raise the budget to a record high. But while Taiwan is adapting to Trump, officials here are also closely watching the battlefield in Ukraine. Taiwanese officials have said that a Ukrainian victory against Russia is the best deterrent against any Chinese aggression. As we enter 2025, Taiwan is preparing for every possibility.
These are some of the key stories in 2025, but of course, by no means all of them. RFERL will also be paying close attention to political instability in Pakistan, international migrant flows, and at how Europe is shaped by internal divisions and external threats. There's going to be a busy global agenda as the new year unfolds.